Listen to the short horror story Berenice by Edgar Allan Poe, Level A2, Oxford Reading University.
It is very hard to understand the nature of evil. I managed to create an ugly thing from the most beautiful one. How did it happen? Why has everything ended so awfully? They say that evil comes out of good. If it is so, then sadness truly comes out of happiness. My name is Agaya. I grew up in an ancient family castle. It was the darkest, the grayest house in our land. People believed that our family came from a race of wizards. No wonder they did. Our house was full of strange, dark things. For example, there were scary pictures on the walls and a very unusual book collection in the library. I spent my early years in that library. My mother died here, and here I was born. Of course, it's hardly surprising that I was so interested in books. I chose to spend lonely days in the library rather than live in the real world. And as I grew older, I realized that real life became a fantasy to me. My wild ideas and dreams became my only reality. Berenice was my cousin. We grew up together, but we had very different personalities. I was quiet and weak. She was happy and full of energy. While she ran around exploring the beauties of nature, I studied alone in a locked room. I was lost in my own world. Berenice moved through life with a light heart. Berenice. I call her name now, and 1,000 memories come back to me. She was so young and beautiful. And then, an awful disease attacked her and changed her completely. She was now different in her appearance, in her habits, and in her character. I didn't know her anymore. Many terrible things happened to her. For example, she had a certain kind of epilepsy that often resulted in a trance that was very similar to death. She could lie completely still for many days, like a dead person. And then she suddenly came to her senses and acted perfectly normal. Meanwhile, I had my own disease, and it was progressing. Soon it took on the most extraordinary form. It was a certain type of monomania that made me focus all my attention, all my energy on one thing. I could spend hours looking at some word on a page of an old book. I could spend almost a day just watching a shadow on the door. Sometimes I watched the little fire of a lamp for the whole night. Other times, I dreamed the whole day over the nice smell of a flower. Such were a few of the many signs of my mental disease. They were impossible to analyze or explain. Being deep in thought is common for most people. However, my extreme attention to small details was not like that. Normally, people think deeply about some important, difficult matter. If they think about it long enough, they may get lost in their ideas and forget the initial matter completely. The things I thought about were not important at all. Moreover, they never put any new ideas in my head. The books that I read at the time certainly affected me and made my disease worse. I thought about life, death, and God. But instead of finding answers, I only got more questions. It may seem strange, but Berenice's disease didn't make my condition worse. Of course, when I could think clearly, I saw how sick she was, and it caused me a lot of pain. However, usually my mind didn't focus on her physical state. I was more interested in her new personality. During the brightest days of her beauty, I wasn't in love with her. I never loved anything with my heart, because all my feelings were of the mind. When I looked at her, I didn't see the real Berenice. I chose to see the Berenice of my dream. Not a thing to love, but a thing to analyze. But now that she was ill, my attitude changed. She made me both uncomfortable and intrigued. However, I also felt deeply sorry for her. I knew that she used to love me, so I asked her to marry me. One winter afternoon, shortly before our wedding day, I sat alone in the library, reading. Suddenly, I heard a little noise. I raised my eyes and saw Berenice standing in front of me. Her figure looked so pale, so uncertain. Was it my excited mind, or the gray light of the room? I don't know. A cold chill ran down my back. My heart sank. At the same time, I was extremely curious. I just looked at her. Neither of us spoke. There was no sign of the old Berenice in this lifeless, sickly body. Her face was white, her hair was no longer black, and her eyes were like glass. Her thin lips smiled at me, showing her teeth. Oh, how I hate to remember those teeth. Then I heard the door shut and looked around. Berenice wasn't there anymore, but her image was still in my mind, and so were her teeth. There was not a single spot on them, not a single shade. They stood out sharply on her face, the only healthy part of her unhealthy body. Soon, I couldn't think about anything except Berenice's teeth. I saw them even clearer in my mind than they were in real life. Those teeth, they were everywhere. They were long, narrow, and perfectly white. No matter where I looked, I saw those teeth in front of me. I imagined how they looked from different angles. I compared them with one another and thought about their different shapes. Soon, I discovered their own nature, separate from the lips, and their own power to feel and express themselves. I can only ever be at peace if I have them in my possession, I finally realized. Soon, evening came, followed by night. Then another day passed, and the second evening came. All this time I sat motionless in the library, lost in my thoughts. Then a loud cry broke into my dreams. I heard worried voices. So, I opened the door and went into the hallway. A servant met me there. She was crying. I learned from her that Berenice was dead. She had an epilepsy attack in the morning, and in the night they were going to bury her. Suddenly, I found myself sitting alone in the library again. I felt tired, but I didn't know why. Have I just woken from a long, exciting dream? I thought. It was midnight. I knew that Berenice was buried at sunset. But what was happening in between? I did not remember. But for some reason, I couldn't stop thinking about my dream. Then I heard a female voice ringing in my ears. It was screaming in fear. Have I done something terrible? I asked myself out loud. What was it? And the walls of the library echoed. What was it? A little box lay on my table. I knew it very well. It was our doctor's toolbox. But why was it on my table? Why did I feel so scared when I looked at it? My eyes fell on the open pages of a book. It said, "My friends told me, if you visit your lover's grave, your worries will disappear." Why did this line make my blood run cold? Someone knocked on the door and a servant entered the library. He looked at me in fear. Then he spoke in a low, shaking voice. What did he say? He told me of a wild cry breaking into the peace of the night. He told me of the servants coming together and searching for the source of the sound. And then he told of a violated grave. A woman's body was attacked and deformed while she was still alive. The servant pointed at my clothes. They were dirty and covered in blood. He took me by the hand. I saw that there were marks of human nails all over it. Then he showed me an object standing against the wall. It was a shovel. I let out a terrible cry. Then I ran to the table and caught hold of the doctor's box. I couldn't open it with my shaking hands, and it slipped through my fingers. As it hit the ground, it broke into pieces. Some dental instruments rolled out of it, together with 32 small white things that looked like bone.
Hit the like button and the notification bell. This way we will know that you want more audiobooks like this. And now, stay for another story in English.